Um, been thinking about this, and I felt like it'd be inappropriate to make this video, but I watched the video of Colin Noor. He's a black guy. He used to be on the NRA TV. He may still be on there. I don't know. And he did like Tucker Carlson did. First of all, I have to say there was a time in my life where I believed these mass shootings and these violent acts would maybe bring Republicans to our side or make them see different viewpoints. And I feel like that was 100 years ago and I was wrong. That these are people who live in echo chambers of their own making and don't exist in the same universe I exist in, period. Colin Noor said that the left made this all about race and that it wasn't about race. This is about a guy who killed a bunch of people, in essence, to live in infamy as a mass shooter. That he'll be remembered as a person who took a whole bunch of life, and that he's gonna go to prison, be brought in, be pulled in by racial hate groups, and he'll be protected. Couple of things. Uh, Even if he is in a racial group, prison will still be bad for him. As I remember, was it Dahmer, the guy, the serial killer, he was killing all them gay men, and I think a lot of them were happened to be black. He got killed in prison. Just because you're a racist and there happens to be racist people in prison, like everywhere else, doesn't mean you'll be safe. I shouldn't have to explain that. But his time in prison is not going to be a cakewalk. White people out here, it's different. When you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, people like that who have gotten money, GoFundMe stuff, out here, that's one thing. But prison is still prison, and you can still get got. People can get to you. Dylan Roof was in the infirmary, and them black dudes, them brothers got to him. So don't be fooled. Um, Colin Noor doing what Republicans do, which is overthinking stuff. You know, I guess Colin Noor is saying that the stuff he wrote on his rifle was just something to get attention. I'm listening to him read, listen to what he's saying, and I'm just realizing this is a person that's deceived. This is a deceived black man to the point to where even when an attack is done on his own people, he doesn't even see it as such. He sees it as something to politicize. Colin Noor put the point forward, and many Republicans should put forward, that this is another example of how gun laws don't work and how gun laws put lives in danger, and that the only protection for good people from bad people is for good people to be armed. All right. Um, Once again, I didn't feel like this video was appropriate, but I keep hearing this, so I'm going to go into this. There was a black security guard there who was armed. He engaged the shooter, and unfortunately, he lost his life. His pistol rounds did no impact, made no impact on the shooter. This notion Republicans are putting out that if everybody was armed, that if the world was armed, that this wouldn't happen, is bullshit. And unfortunately, this retired black officer proved that point. Unless you're walking around with cop killer bullets, the green tip bullets, unless you're walking around with stuff like that, there's little you can do. In my mind, these mass shooters are like serial killers. That's how I see them. I read something a while back. This FBI, this guy that I think he started like the FBI stuff for our serial killers and shit. He was talking about how even if there was training for the citizenry about serial killers, like it would be of no effect. He said they're like, it's like lightning. You won't see it coming, and once it strikes, it's lights out. It's too late. It's the same thing with these mass shooters, like this individual, Gendrum. These people don't think the way we think. They don't operate the way we operate. And as I said in the earlier video, that it doesn't have to be. See, Republicans want these things to be clear cut. That, well, he didn't have a Trump flag. He didn't say he supported Trump. It doesn't matter. Trump, his language, his 4 years of white supremacy and putting white supremacists up in his cabinet and around his administration legitimized hatred. I spoke about it. The Tree of Life shooter said Trump didn't go far enough. He said that Trump was there to protect the Jews. That's what he said. You're going to tell me he wasn't a white supremacist because he didn't support Trump? That's how dumb they are. That's how dumb Republicans think we are, to put forward the notion that because this, it's kind of like when Joe Biden was running and they said, where the Joe Biden flags at? We don't need Joe Biden flag. We're Americans. We're not in a cult. You are. It's the same thing. I think that, off subject. If you follow the Republican notion of if we had more guns, we could stop mass shooters. What's what Michael Brooks taught me. Look at the long term. Look at what people are saying. What you're saying is everybody should walk around with guns, body armor, rifles, armored vehicles, and that as society collapses and things get worse, society collapses, that we'll need these implements. Instead of dealing with the problems of society, you want to up armor society. And I would say up armor in the way of people carrying guns and armor. But I would also say when you look at the Republican Party, I think it was the Senate putting forward a bill. They wanted to research how they could protect military bases in the face of climate change. Now, the person that proposed it was the head Joint Chiefs that Trump picked, Mark Milley. He's the one that came up with the idea. So you don't want to deal with climate change. It's like you don't want to deal with white supremacy. You don't want to deal with these issues in a legitimate, holistic way that would solve problems. You want to up armor society to say, yeah, we said it didn't exist, but guess what? It does exist. And we're still not going to do anything about these problems. But the future will look like Judge Dredd. The future will look like something like that. That's the mindset of these folks. And looking at the Buffalo shooter, looking at that situation, as sad as it is, I have to make this video, I have to bring these topics up, because it shouldn't be about the shooter. It should be about the victims and their lives. It should be about the fact that Buffalo, I think they just built a stadium, but the people in the neighborhood only had one supermarket. And a lot of them don't want to go back to the supermarket now because of the memories. That should be what the story's about. But I'm not going to sit here and let a deceived black man. Now, I understand there's a reward for being deceived. There's a bank, there's a bag out there for that. There's a bag. Look at Ben Carson. There's a bag for black men who piss on other black people. There's a bag for black men who slam the door in the face of other black men. There's a victory for that. I want to be clear. Look at Justice Thomas, Clarence Thomas. That's the best example I can give you of a black man that basically, made his bank off of just pissing on other black people. Ben Carson, he talked about in his book being on food stamps and how his mother had mental problems. Mother would send him away to his grandparents in the mountains and stuff, and she would go put herself in a mental institution. He never knew. You think there was no government money involved with those programs? He talked about being on ROTC. There's no government money into that. But then he gets in office and wants to cut all that stuff. It's just the notion that the notion that if all those black people had guns, it would have saved them from death. It's faulty and it's sort of putrid, because you're saying to those black people and their families in death, you are at fault. You're at fault. And I said it when I first saw it. I was like to myself, I'm like, these weren't people at a political rally. These are people who were at the supermarket living their lives. They didn't expect. They weren't out here. Some of them might have voted for Trump. A lot of black folks are conservative. A lot of black folks are conservative. You talking about young subject, older folks. Yes, I mean you are, because what it is also, it's about downplaying white supremacy, so that even when these things happen, yeah, it's sad people died, but it's their fault. It's almost like insurance companies where they say like, yeah, you didn't wear your seatbelt. Yeah, you didn't do this. Yeah, you didn't do that. You're doing everything you can do to not pay the recipient, the beneficiaries. You're trying to find fault and find little things to pick at, uh, to to shift blame. I just never thought I'd see a black man uh, playing that role, playing that position. Um, these these situations, the way I look at them, aren't so much terrifying as they are sad. Because to me, racism, as I've gotten older, racism is about uh, fewer opportunities for white people, in the sense that they're losing out, in the sense that their children are losing out, and so you get violence. It's ignorance, but it's a big segment of it is uh, deprivation of opportunities that these blacks are taking over. Um, so it's gonna be more of these things. It's I've said it before. It's sad to me that I didn't look at the body count. My first thing was his travel, his what they call in the military methods of what's the word called? Methods of entry, his infiltration, his exfiltration. That was my first. I was looking at driving 200 miles to kill a bunch of black people in a store. I mean, it's like they've done everything they possibly could to eliminate race, even when it's even when it's staring black people in the face, even black conservatives. They did everything they could, Republicans, to downplay the racial element. I mean, they could have a picture of this guy in a Klan robe, and Republicans would still find some kind of way to downplay it and to say to black people, black man, it's your fault that if you hadn't disputed Trump and you hadn't talked about racism for 4 years, we wouldn't be killing your black asses. You deserve to die. It's your fault. Your family deserves this. Even that's disgusting. It's putrid, as I said before. It is terribly putrid to know people like this exist, and to know that this is the response. And you look at George Floyd protests. You look at everything else. You understand their thought process isn't your thought process, and it never will be. Thank you for listening.